Hello everybody, and welcome back to another mathematics video, very fun mathematics video. And I trust that you're having a good time with these videos and that you are understanding and being placed in a better position to perform better in your exam. So let's head into today's video. Today we are continuing our journey with solving quadratics, but we'll be taking a step further, or a parallel step to solving quadratic equation. And we'll be using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations. Now, sometimes you may come across equations in which you can't factorize and then solve, because some equations are like that. They are not in a format or a way before you can factorize. So the very important method, or the very important way to solve any quadratic, would be using the quadratic formula. And as long as you can use this formula effectively, you can solve any quadratic. Now in your exam, it doesn't matter if you know this method or the other method, it's better to know both. But most times they don't specify on which method to use, but sometimes they do specify and tell you factorize and then solve, or they tell you solve using the quadratic formula. Now remembering the quadratic formula is really and truly not important, but it's good to remember it. With constant practice, it will eventually stick in your head. But this formula will be given to you in paper 2. So there's no need to stress on remembering it. It's so understanding how to use the formula. So let's head in straight into what exactly this formula is. So the formula says, of course, this formula will help you to find the value of x or y or whatever it is in the quadratic. Because you know a quadratic can be yx squared plus 3y minus 2 or something like that, in which you just replace the x with the y, but most times we have x. So the quadratic formula helps you to find the unknown. Now this is what the formula says. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a times c, all divided by 2a. And of course, you know the general form for a quadratic is ax squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c is equal to 0. So this a, b, and c that you see in this quadratic formula, it's the same coefficient in front of these terms, and the c is the constant by itself. The same thing that we've been identifying before we factorize using the AC method. So that is how we're doing. So in this case, we are solving and we are taking those values and we're substituting it into the quadratic formula. So let's head into an example. So the first example is we have to solve this, and we're using a quadratic formula to solve this. So the equation is 2x squared minus 7x plus 3 is equal to 0. And we want to solve this quadratic. So of course, since we are substituting a, b, and c into the quadratic, it's important to identify before we actually put down the formula. What is a, b, and c? So we see a is equal to 2. B is equal to negative 7, and C is equal to 3. Now let's put down the formula now. So the formula says x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So the big step is to substitute these values for a, b, and c into the formula. So you'll have x is equal to negative, instead of b, we'll say b is equal to negative 7. So instead of negative b, we'll say negative, and we have to put in the negative 7. I know many students tend to see the negative 7 and say that, oh, we already have a negative, so we just got to put in the 7. No, it has to be negative, and we put in bracket, negative 7, because that is the value of b, negative 7, plus or minus the square root of, so we see b again, b squared would be negative 7 squared, minus 4 multiplied by a, which is 2, multiplied by c, which is 3, all divided by 2 multiplied by a, which is 2. And now this is the big step, simplifying this here now. So we'll have x is equal to the negative multiplied by the negative 7. This will simply give you a positive 7. Plus or minus the square root of So we see negative 7 squared. That is like negative 7 times negative 7. So that would give you a positive 49. Negative 4 multiplied by 2 would give you a negative 8. And negative 8 times 3 would give me a negative 24 or minus 24 if you want to look at it that way. And then all of this will be over 2 times 2 would give you 4. So when we simplify this here, we'll have x is equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of, so 49 subtract 24 would give me 25. So we have a beautiful number, a nice number to find the square root of, which is 25. And all of this will be divided by 4. So I'll move my work into the top here. So I'll have x is equal to 7 plus or minus. Now this plus or minus, that is where we'll get our two values for x. Because remember when we solve quadratics, most times we get two different values for x. So we'll have 7 plus or minus, and when we square root 25, we'll get 5, all divided by 4. So now this step is where we separate the plus and the minus. So on one side we'll have x is equal to 7 plus 5 divided by 4. And we'll have x is equal to 7 minus 5, all divided by 4. So x will be equal to 7 plus 5 would give us 12. And 12 divided by 4 would give us x is equal to 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that is one value for x. On this side, we have x is equal to 7 minus 5. So 7 minus 5, that would give you 2 divided by 4. We'll have x is equal to 2 divided by 4 will give you a half, or 0.5. So we have our two values for x, which is x is equal to 3 and x is equal to 0.5. And of course, we can check to see if our answer is correct by substituting for x equal 3 into this original equation that we started out with, which is 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. And when you simplify that, you should get 0 is equal to 0. And then we can check the other answer, which is x equal 0.5. We substitute the 0.5 in place of x in the original equation. And when you work that out, you should get a value, you should get an equation, 0 is equal to 0. And that means both of the answers satisfy the equation. They are absolutely correct. So of course, our steps were correct. So I leave it up to you to check to see if what I did was correct. So let's move on to another example to solidify our understanding of using the quadratic equation. So let's say we have the equation x squared minus 4x equal to negative 3. And we're asked to solve this equation. So some people may run and jump and say a is equal to 1, b equal negative 4, and c equal negative 3. But we have to remember to identify a, b, and c, it must be in the general form. And we know the general form for a quadratic equation is ax squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c is equal to 0. So we have to transform this into the general form. And we can simply do that by taking over this minus 3. So when we take over the minus 3, we'll have x squared minus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now we can identify what is a, and what is b, and what is c. So we see a is equal to the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. b is equal to the coefficient of x, which is negative 4. And c is equal to 3. So we take these values now and we put it into the quadratic formula. So we know the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So we see x will be equal to negative, and we see b again is negative 4. So we have to put that negative 4 in place of b. So this is negative, and this negative here is this negative sign. So I don't want us to get confused and think the negative is this negative. No. So that's just one thing I want us to note. So negative, and in bracket b, which is negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is negative 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3. And all of this will be divided by 2 multiplied by a, which is 1. So we work out, we simplify. So we see x is equal to negative times the negative 4 will give us a positive 4, plus or minus the square root of, so we see negative 4 squared, that would give you negative 4 times negative 4. Negative times the negative will give you a positive. 4 times 4 would give you 16. And then we have negative 4 times 1 will give you negative 4. Negative 4 times 3 would give you a negative 12 or minus 12. And all of this will be divided by 2 times 1 is 2. And we take this a bit further. So we'll have x is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 12 would give me 4. And all of this divided by 2. So you have a very beautiful number to take the square root of. So we take our working up here. So we'll have x is equal to 4 plus or minus, when we take the square root of 4, we'll end up with a lovely 2. All divided by 2. So now is where we separate the plus and the minus. So we'll have x is equal to 4 plus 2 divided by 2. And x is equal to 4 minus 2 all divided by 2. And x should be equal to 4 plus 2 is 6 divided by 2. Hence x would be equal to 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that is one value of x. And x will be equal to 4 subtract 2 would give us 2. And that will be divided by 2. And 2 divided by 2 will give me a beautiful 1. And there we have our 2 values of x, which would be x is equal to 3 and x is equal to 1. And of course, I will say again, we can check to see if our answer is correct by substituting these 2 values individually, separately. First, we can substitute the 3 into this original here, or you can substitute it in this one. Of course, we know if we substitute in this one, when we work it out, we should get negative 3 is equal to negative 3. Because the 2 sides must be balanced regardless of what is on the other side. And if you substitute it in this one, you should get 0 is equal to 0. Alright? So you can do that in your own time to see if what I did was correct. And with that, it has brought us to the end of this video. And I trust that now you have a better understanding of how you can use the quadratic formula to solve any quadratic. And with that, I'll leave you this question to practice. So I want you to solve this equation. So you'll have x squared plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. And I want you to solve this using the quadratic formula. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.